a Russian, and if you want to be friendly with Russia, go to Russia. He said this just a few months ago. So, coming back to sanctions, sanctions we will survive. The measures which the president and the government are developing, elaborating, and they're being announced, this is only the beginning of our economy to get adjusted to the new situation. After 2014, as I started to say, we did gain experience to rely upon ourselves. And the biggest lesson from this particular historic period is, unlike what we saw after 2014, that now, if there was any illusion that we can one day rely on our Western partners, this illusion is no longer there. We will have to rely only on ourselves and on our allies who would stay with us. This is the main conclusion for Russia in the context of geopolitics.
Mm-hmm. I think it's safe to say that Russian culture specifically has become accustomed to being part of, you might say, a global village of countries that share deep economic ties and enjoy traveling between each other. How do you think these sanctions are going to influence the everyday life of Russians in the long term in relation to that?
Well, as I said, the assessment of what is going on, in my view, clearly indicates that what the American wants is unipolar world, which would be not like a global village, which would be like an American village, and maybe American saloon where, you know, who is the strongest is calling the shots. And I said they are succeeding to mobilize behind themselves and on the basis of their own interests the entire Western world, which is indicative of how independent NATO members and European Union members are, and which is indicative what place the European Union, as I said, would have in the future configuration of the world situation and world system. There are players who would never accept the global village under the American sheriff, and China, India, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. I am sure these countries do not want to be just in a position when Uncle Sam orders them something and they say, yes, sir. And of course, Russia is not in the category of countries who would be ready to do so. Actually, when the Americans and Western Europeans and others say that Russia was defeated in the General Assembly because vast majority of countries voted against the Russian action in Ukraine, it's misleading. Because if you take the population represented by the countries who were not voting against Russia, and especially if you take the number of countries who introduced sanctions against Russia, majority of those who voted against us did so under huge pressure, under blackmail, including, I know this for sure, including the threats to individual delegates regarding the assets in the United States, bank accounts, children studying in universities, and so on and so forth. It's absolutely unprecedented blackmail and pressure without any scruples. So majority of those countries who voted with the West, they did not and they would not introduce sanctions against Russia. They believe that it's, you know, not very big price to pay for their own practical cooperation with Russia, just to vote on something which is needed for the West for entirely propagandistic purposes. So we will be, as always, open to cooperation with anyone who is ready to do so on the equal basis, on the basis of mutual respect and searching for balance of interests. and the countries in the east of Russia are much more disposed to act on this basis, and we will certainly reciprocate for the benefit of both us and our partners. We are not closing the door on the West. They are doing so. But when they come back to their senses and when this door is reopened, we will be looking at proposed projects of cooperation with very important thing in mind, to which I alluded already, that we will be going into cooperation with them, knowing very well that we cannot be sure that they are reliable and that they are credible as long-term partners.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to take the discussion now to a sort of different topic, these U.S.-sponsored biolabs in Ukraine. I mean, for years already, Russia has been trying to bring the world's attention to them, and the latest piece of evidence connected to them, the Russian military just put forward not too long ago with documents signed by U.S. officials in connection to them. Why do you think the world is not paying so much attention to these biolabs, and will Washington and its allies be held accountable for what they're doing there?
Actually, it's interesting that the special military operation launched by the President of the Russian Federation helped discover many things which are very important for understanding of what is going on. Recently, the military of Russia, together with Donetsk and Lugansk forces, discovered documents of the Ukrainian general staff indicating clearly that they were preparing a massive attack against Donetsk and Lugansk republics. So the operation which was launched by Russia, in fact, preempted this threat and did not allow them to implement what they wanted to do, and they wanted